right. Welcome to Nostalgicast, your weekly roundup of the best and most up-to-date nostalgic news, where we discuss the stories from a safe distance. Ooh. And give our thoughts. I am your host, who has never had the honor of reenacting the pottery wheel scene from Ghost, Andrew Price. He's like the wind. Tyler Palo. Kirk, you know.
Yeah, I got there.
Nobody puts Kelby Joseph in a corner. And
I mean, my
Dad Beats, a.k.a. Daddy Roadhouse, a.k.a. Kirk Pinchon.
Dad Beats!
Save the best for last.
On an all Swayze-themed intro for no reason.
Yeah, Kirk Roundhouse kicked my heart.
How's it going, guys?
Good. Wonderful.
It's going.
What are we doing? What are we all doing on this lovely, lovely, hot Los Angeles afternoon? Did you guys notice how pretty much all of February and March has pretty much been really, really relatively for LA cold, and then it was like April 1st, literally just out the gate. It's hot now.
Yep.
April 1st.
It's how.
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's a joke.
This is our life now.
It's a joke.
This whole thing is a joke. It's a cosmic.
I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I had to turn the air conditioner on last night. That's nuts.
Seriously?
I
Isn't
did.
that hot?
But I'm kind of in a weird place where, like a couple weeks ago on the podcast, I was doing just fine, and then all of a sudden I was freezing cold, and then I would go from being freezing cold to being really, really, really hot. So I don't know.
I think you're going through menopause.
I mean, we're all
Second
going
time
through
around.
menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how menopause works.
Yeah.
Man. So what? Yeah. So what have we been doing?
Well,
Quarantine week 3. What have we all been doing?
I
ahead, Tyler.
legit spent money on renting Galaxy Quest.
Money well spent.
I know.
Don't say that like you're ashamed.
I'm a little bit ashamed after watching it again. It's really good, but I like Tim Allen so much.
In that,
I love him in
best
that
work.
movie.
I know I know that Tim Allen's a garbage person, but I was like, that movie is so redeeming for him. It's so good. I love it. That's what I've been doing. That's it. Just watching old movies.
Fun fact: he adopted his. He said that whenever he sat in the captain's chair, he wasn't mimicking Captain Kirk, Will Shatner. He was mimicking Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments.
Yul Brynner?
Yeah.
He was?
Yeah.
Hot take. He wasn't doing a very good job then.
He's doing a great job.
Tim Allen.
He is great in that movie.
Tim Allen.
He's great in that movie. He's if he's trying to do Yul Brynner, that's not a Yul
In the
Brynner.
Ten Commandments?
No,
Yeah.
that's not. He's not doing Yul Brynner at all.
He was the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Moses and the Hebrewites think they can destroy
Yes,
us.
Bosley. Yes. Kirk hates Tim Allen, and I have a feeling that in high school, Tim Allen took one of y'all ladies.
Yeah. He definitely.
So you're
he definitely
basically
stole
saying
Kirk's
I'm the
girlfriend.
same age as Tim Allen?
No. Tim Allen's like 53 or 54.
The camera can't see him.
Oh my God, Tyler, you can. Oh my God.
No, I said Tim Allen's 53 or 54.
Tim Allen is way older.
I think he's older than that. I think he's
Tim
maybe
Allen is
60.
66.
Is he really?
66? How you gonna let a
Yes.
66-year-old take your girls, bro?
He's got that money.
Yeah, whenever it wasn't Tim Allen wasn't in his high school with him. Just whenever Kirk was in high school, Tim Allen as an adult just came and stole his girlfriend.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
It was way
It's
mean.
nasty. I have been staying as productive as possible. I've been reading. Last night was the first time I went to sleep in a few days. I've been taking online classes. I've been
Jeez.
fixing up my website. Kirk has been helping me out with that. I've just been staying productive because once this is all over, I'm not gonna be lacking or slacking.
Did you use Wix.com?
No, don't give them any
Wow.
promotion without them paying us the bag.
I was gonna say I was gonna pretend like it was a sponsor, like a native sponsored read, and then
Oh yeah. In that case, I have been using Wix, and it's a beautiful website. Eventually, I'll send it to you, all of you guys.
if you're listening to this, Mr. Wix, owner of Wix.com,
The Wix
we
fortune.
want to do your advertising.
Todd Wicks, great guy.
Yeah, Todd Wix, a huge fan of nostalgia.
Yeah,
Rest
he
in peace,
loves
Todd.
it.
Wait, T Wix? Twix?
Oh,
Oh! We finally
The
solved
owner
the
of
mystery.
Wix.com is also the owner of Twix.
Yes, sir.
oh boy. Well,
Right.
what I've been doing is just getting to know me.
What's that puppy
Oh, there's
been
a
doing?
dog.
What that dog do?
He
What that dog
demands a
do.
lot of attention because the moment you sit in the chair, he wants to come and put his face in your arm and snuggle up. But I got 30
Sounds
seconds with me, and then
amazing.
after that, it's a wrap.
Yep.
Dogs.
So what were you doing, Kirk?
Oh, besides just kind of getting to know me and just kind of centering and focusing, and every day's a gift and trying not to freak out. That's all I've been doing.
Nice.
White knuckle.
Nice.
No. Working. Did a couple more dad beats, which I'll drop next week.
Hey. I'll drop him.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
yeah. That's
I
hot.
don't know,
That's
I don't
hot.
actually
Dad
know where
beat
you're
singles.
dropping them, like into your.
Yeah, it's just-
I'll email them. Drop them on the email.
Gotcha.
That's the name of my new song. Drop them on the email.
Yeah, he has
I'll drop them on the internet later, guys.
Yeah.
he has release parties in the drafts of his genome.
But so yeah, been doing that, and then work and family, and the big thing is I have a new podcast that I'm going to promote right now.
Uh-oh.
Wait a
Tell
minute,
him.
you've been
Double dipping.
two timing?
Listen, Andrew, you're great, but sometimes I need things a little spicy. And
I mean, I'm spicy.
I mean, I've seen the video that you made, that you showed us. You are spicy. And speaking of spicy, that's what my podcast is. It's called Food Fight. It's a food podcast / debate show where we take one food theme per pod and debate the crap out of it. Just because we love food and we love debating. Kelby has been on it. Kelby's episode is going to come out in a couple weeks. Tyler will be on it eventually. Andrew will be on it eventually. I'm not sure because we have so many arguments about food. It's the thing we probably argue about the most in life. So I'm worried that you'll come on the pod and it'll be a straight up just hour-long brawl where words are said and feelings are hurt.
I'm gonna come onto an episode and I'm gonna drop my hot take. The only food that you should eat are salt-free wafer crackers every day for every meal.
Remember maybe 3 years ago, you were like, I'm just drinking Soylent Green.
Well, first of all, it's not Soylent Green.
It was Soylent
Because
Green.
Soylent
It's-
Green is people.
Yeah.
Yes, but everyone makes that joke about Soylent of like, oh, it's Soylent, it's people or whatever. But those people, they haven't read the book. The thing about Soylent is Soylent. So the story of Soylent Green is that there is a is that
Murderer behind you, Kirk.
it looks real creepy. It looks like The Grudge.
There's a 13-foot
Jesus.
tall guy behind you.
Yeah.
In the story in the book and the movie, Soylent is a food that the entire society eats, and it's basically like they had like a national food like a global food shortage, and there was a famine, and then scientists invented this meal replacement that everybody eats, and it's called Soylent, and it's made from a combination of soybeans and lentils. And then what happens in the story is they release a new product, a new and improved version of Soylent called Soylent Green, and they discover at the end of the movie that it's people and that they're basically taking dead bodies and turning them into food. But the original thing, the Soylent, was not people. It was soybeans and lentils. And that's what Soylent is named after. It's named after the original thing, not the Soylent Green.
But you were drinking. You were still drinking people.
Absolutely.
He was definitely drinking.
100%. You tried to get me on. It was like 3 years ago. You're like, yeah, that's all I'm doing now is just drinking the Soylent Green. You got to get on this.
It's not Soylent Green. It's Soylent.
That's why I don't risk it.
And it was much more recent. It was much more recent than 3 years ago. I only relatively recently stopped.
Okay.
I mean, that was that long ago. Whenever we talked about that at the Culver City office, but I only just recently stopped doing Soylent in the last year or so.
Sounds weird when you say doing Soylent.
Yeah, it got real
doing
bad for him.
Soylent.
He was
so you're doing
mainlining it.
people.
Wait, so what does that
It's
mean?
not-
So he was eating it for every meal, or like,
Yeah, is a drink meal substitute.
I drank a bottle of Soylent for breakfast, lunch, and then I had real food for dinner.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
For time efficiency, so I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to go anywhere to get lunch, and I could just work through lunch.
This is why I'm worried about you being on Food Fight, because food fights for foodies are people who argue. You just want to argue,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I mean, like, this show is for foodies. If you like food, we did a dessert episode. We did a breakfast episode. We just dropped the pizza episode. Kelby is on teaching us all about Haitian food. So it's a lot of fun. If you love food, check it out. If you love... why are you walking behind me, you big dummy? If you love... That was my son.
I gotta fight.
So if you love food, check it out.
I want to see a brawl.
No.
Definitely.
I want to see a brawl happen on camera.
We brawled Sunday, and he just laid on top of me until I was like, I'm done.
That's actually how you go to sleep every night. Is Theo just lays on top of you until you pass
He's
out.
my stress heavy blanket.
Thunder blanket, yeah.
He puts him over his eyes instead of the t-shirt.
That's right. But yeah, go check it out. Food Fight podcast. Stop this episode right now. Go subscribe. Come back, listen to this. Then listen to Food Fight. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of food. We taste foods. We eat food. We talk food. That's my plug.
Yep. Nice. And I stopped doing Soylent. I don't even really know why. I don't even remember why.
Because you realized it was people.
No, I just
He was definitely drinking.
I guess I just stopped seeing the need to have to be like. Yeah, my wife is saying that she was the reason I stopped.
100%.
She's a good
So-
lady.
what?
She's a good woman.
Rational.
Oh, because. Okay, yeah, my wife is saying that the reason why we stopped is because we got pregnant with our first son, and she stopped doing it because she was worried that it was going to be like, it was bad to like only drink a meal replacement supplement while you're pregnant. Or I mean, I guess it definitely is bad, and it just kind of fizzled out from there.
Yeah, it's bad to drink people while you're pregnant.
That's
It's
facts.
not people
I knew one of the people too.
that I drank.
Yeah, I knew him. That dog does not want to be held.
No.
She does. She just loves fighting. Trust me.
What the heck? All right.
She's
Kirk gets into a fist fight with his son. Tyler gets his hand bitten off by a dog.
These at-home episodes are nuts.
Dogs and cats
More
living
nuts
together.
than Tiger King.
Mass hysteria.
All right, so before we get into the stories, let's follow up. Unfortunately, I don't have great news for you as a follow-up. So last week we talked about the fact that the only distribution channel for comic books in North America, Diamond, was stopping distribution for the kind of indefinitely for the foreseeable future. And we had Dave on, who is a comic artist, to talk about the reason like what kind of repercussions that could have, and also how it's going to affect the industry as a whole. So there's a little bit more news on that as a follow up, and it's not necessarily good news. So Diamond is basically, they said that they said in a statement that they're having cash flow problems. So now they've halted payment to vendors. Diamond Comic Distributors is holding previously scheduled payments to its vendors this week, attributing their decision to cash flow difficulties due to the coronavirus impact on the supply chain. In a letter from Stan Heidman, the president of Diamond's parent company, Geppy Family Enterprises, or Jeppy or something, the distributor explains to its vendors that they are no longer receiving consistent payments from our customers, and that as a result, they will hold payments to vendors previously scheduled to release this week. For the layman, Diamond's customers are direct market or specifically comic book shops, mail order services, bookstores, and other retail operations who buy discounted products from the distributor to sell to their customers. Vendors are the comic book publishers and manufacturers of games, toys, collectibles, etc., who depend on Diamond to distribute those products to retail stores. So basically, they stopped distribution of all their books and toys and games, but the comic book shops were still open a little bit longer, and also a lot of comic book shops are doing like curbside delivery or even like mail delivery, where they've now, like, there's a comic book shop near my house / you guys' house as well, that's in downtown North Hollywood, called Collector's Paradise, and they're doing a thing now called Collector's Paradise Curate, where they'll send you you do, like, it's basically like a subscription box where every month, or maybe it's even every week, they mail you a box of curated comics. So it's basically like a way to get a box of comics that they recommend that you read every week, in addition to being able to have your subscription delivered to you. So in the world of comic book collectors, or in the world of comic book readers and comic book shops, there's a thing called a subscription, or a pull, where basically you have a subscription to a bunch of different comics, and every week you go in and get your box. So one comic book reader might be like, every week I read the Uncanny X-Men, and I read the Ultimate Spider-Man, and I read Saga, and I read Criminal, and those books are put out weekly, or sometimes monthly, or whatever the time frame is. And every month or every week you go in and get your pull list, and they give you all the books that come out for your subscriptions that week, so you can get those delivered. So a lot of comic book shops are still moving product, even if they aren't open. But now, even though that product is still being sold and moving, and that money is coming back to Diamond from comic book shops buying the product, or having bought the product in the past before they stopped distribution, even though they do have money that they owe the vendors, the people who are making the comics, they are just not paying them. They're saying, like, we need to delay payment for product that you've already given to us, that we've already sold, until we have more cash flow, which is,
shitty.
Yeah, it sucks. It's
fucking terrible.
It's just another blow to the whole supply chain. Like, they already stopped distribution to the comic book stores, so now the comic book stores can't get any new product, and they can't continue moving products. But now, in addition to that, the product that the comic book stores already had and they're already selling, that the money from that existing product can't even go back to the vendors. So,
right.
Not that this would have happened, but in a best case scenario situation where comic book stores could have gotten through the quarantine with the product that they already had on shelves, and they could have continued selling, and then that money could have continued going back to the vendor, and everybody could have, like, best case scenario, made it through the quarantine unscathed by just utilizing the existing product that was already there to sell and then give that money, back to the vendors. Even that can't happen now because the middleman of Diamond, they're claiming cash flow problems, and so they're basically asking vendors, like, we need to delay paying you for what is it? What do they say?
I bet it's just got to be going into the owner's bank accounts. Like, they're just holding as much money as possible before they're. It doesn't have a
timeline. They don't say anything about when, so it's basically like indefinitely.
They're making sure they have enough money before
to stay afloat.
Shuts down. No,
so
they know they're out of business. They're just going to go out of business.
Yeah,
they're doing shitty business, and they're taking money that they owe to other people to make sure that they can live on millions of dollars that they owe people while their company shuts down and leaves people behind. They're assholes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's funny because Dave was actually a little easy on them last episode. He was being very nice to Diamond in the way he was talking about them, which I was actually surprised by. I'm not really sure why he was softballing it, but Dave hates Diamond. He thinks it's like the worst thing.
Yes, boss.
Interesting. I didn't get that from him.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to be a little bit more diplomatic.
Yeah,
he probably just
Tyler.
didn't feel like. Yeah, he probably just didn't feel like it was constructive to go after them so hard whenever we're all just kind of dealing with issues. But he's really critical of them. He finds them to be a very toxic force in the comic book industry.
Wow. Interesting.
Do you have my dog?
The dog just leaves your screen and then goes into his,
Kelby
and then
I
everybody
are
finds out.
roommates.
Everybody finds out that this entire thing is staged. And we all are still in the office, and we just have like these sets that make it seem like we're at home, and we're
we
actually
bring family and kids in.
we're actually just defying.
I'm on the
quarantine.
other side of Tyler's separator.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You're on the other side of that.
that's actually my kitchen.
Yeah,
And,
this dog requires a lot of attention.
And to further this bad news, a bunch of comic book stores are starting to permanently close.
Yikes.
So there's a handful of comic book shops that have closed, and obviously these shops aren't going to mean anything to anybody because comic book stores are very like specifically local to places. Mm-hmm. There's really not comic book chains, so it's not like, oh, Blockbuster's going out of business, because it's all just independent shops. But just to name them, Show Enough Comics in Tuscaloosa, Alabama has closed permanently. Blue Moon Comics in San Rafael, California has closed permanently. Purple Turtle Comics in Vallejo, California has closed permanently. And there will just continue to be more closures.
Yeah.
And if those names mean nothing to you, it's still important because the comic book industry thrives on local independent comic book stores that exist in communities. So it's real dark. It's real dark.
Yeah, it always seems like, from the few times I've been in comic book stores with my son, they're hanging out places. You go there. Part of the whole process of getting the comics is going there and selecting and looking and talking to people and stuff. And with all that's going on, that's just dead. It's just the same with like when shopping for vinyl. You go and you look, and yeah, you can buy it online, but the whole point is to go and be there. It's an interactive thing, and that's now dead, which is real sad.
Mm-hmm.
This is all directly affected by coronavirus, or is this just ain't nobody buying?
I mean, it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, the comic book shops all have to close, and they can still deliver. They can still come up with solutions. Some of them are able to do curbside delivery, where you drive up and then they bring it out to you. Some places are not allowed to. Like I know here in LA, like they're not even allowed to do that because they're not considered an essential service. So they're not even allowed to like offer like physical service like that. Collector's Paradise was doing curbside delivery, but they actually got a letter from the city telling them to stop. But they can do mail delivery. They can exist as a mail order non brick and mortar company. So they can still sell, but you got to assume that not a lot of people are actually doing that.
Do you like this?
Well, yeah, nobody. I mean, fucking nobody has jobs.
Yeah,
you
you
can't
got to
subscription.
you got to assume that. Yeah, you got to assume that by and large, a lot of, except for the top 1% of people who still have disposable income to buy comics, there's probably not a lot of people actually doing that.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I'm gonna put this Dracula Play-Doh on your birthday. On your birthday.
Oh, thank you.
This is on your plate.
That's on my birthday?
Yes. It's on your birthday.
On my cake, or it's a birthday present?
It's a birthday present.
Oh,
for
thank
you.
Andrew, is it your birthday today? No.
No.
Okay, I was like, holy sh.
It's in February.
Okay.
He's a little late or very early.
Very early.
Let's say very early.
So to get into these stories, so an interesting thought that's being talked about by NATO, as we talked about last week, I think, the National Association of Theater Owners, or NATO. They've talked about the idea that there might be a period once the shutdown ends and movie theaters are allowed to reopen, that they might just have a period where they give movies for free. They don't immediately go back to showing new movies and charging full price for them. That they might have a period of like showing old movies that are cheaper or free to screen, and just allowing free admission just to get people back in and get them acquainted with and reminded of going to the theater. So movie theaters are down for the count right now, but when they open again following the current coronavirus pandemic, they may be free to attend at the start. With public gatherings essentially banned across the country to slow the spread of COVID-19, movie theaters have become ghost towns, with tens of thousands of employees furloughed or laid off due to the lack of revenue. Many movie studios have responded by postponing release of their blockbuster films, raising the question of how movie theaters will survive the coronavirus. NATO is witnessing firsthand what happens when the movie industry undergoes a complete shutdown. NATO is lobbying Congress in an attempt to secure funds and loans to keep movie theaters across the country in business, as the finish line for the coronavirus pandemic remains far out of sight. In an interview with Screen Rant, NATO's chief communications officer Patrick Corcoran suggested movie theaters may open for free when they're back up and running. The idea is taking a cue from some theaters that have been able to reopen in China and have done so at no cost to the consumer while showing old movies. If movie theaters have the stability of money coming in from in the form of loans or bailouts, it may not be a bad idea to remind customers why it's exciting to go see movies on big screens with a large group of people. So basically, like I said, once they're allowed to reopen, people. Once the shutdown ends, whenever that is, people are still going to be scared of going out to places. That's not going to end. It's not going to be like, oh, everything's normal again. Time to go lick a handrail. Like, people are still going to be, people are still going to be. People are still going to be scared to go places. So the idea is to say, hey, come to the theater, see Die Hard for free, and kind of reacclimate people with going to the theater.
I love this
about
idea.
to be $50.
Was that?
That popcorn is about to be $50.
I was about to say, I was curious about that because Yeah, I'll go see a movie for free. That's great, but you know,
they'll still sell the concessions because the unspoken truth is that movie theaters make all of their money from concessions.
Yeah,
they pretty much break even on ticket sales. Like they don't really make money from ticket sales. It's all in the concessions.
That's why you got to bring your own food. Life hack.
You want to fuck the theaters right after they were just like banned from showing movies?
Not immediately. No. We'll wait till things are back to normal and then we'll fuck them.
Yeah, there you go.
That Diet Coke costs a lot of money.
Now you speaking facts.
No
Yeah,
email.
The big thing here is that once people have been sitting at home, getting used to the idea of watching movies at home, maybe realizing that they like it better, or at least it's comparable enough that they just aren't as interested in going to theaters anymore. Theaters are gonna have to win that audience back. They're gonna have to figure out a way to get people to come back into the theater.
That's not happening.
So offering it for free is one solution.
I think it's a good start. It's definitely a good start. It'd be fun to see certain movies. So I would love to see movies, like older movies. That'd be fun, like classic movies. But like movies from maybe like 2 or 3 years ago that you just like, oh God, I missed it. I didn't have time to go see that. I'm so glad. I'll go see that for free in a movie theater. That would be really cool. Like if they did that, all like the big movie, like all the Oscar movies from 2017. Here, you missed them. Let's just show them right now. And that way you're like, oh shit, I get to see these.
If they showed Time Lock in a theater, I'd be there.
Oh my God.
Day one.
I imagine they would do like marathons too. All day marathons, just having people come in and watching like all the James Bond movies in a row. Or
yeah, exactly.
Tomb Raider.
Make it like a festival. Make it like a free
people pay
festival.
money for that. People pay money for that kind of stuff. I pay money to go see old movies in theaters all the time.
Yeah.
So for free, like of course.
Yeah, might even spring for popcorn.
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of people start itching from being at home too much. They're starting to revolt against Netflix. They're like, yo, look, I've seen all of Netflix. I need to go do something else. So this is a great idea. It's gonna get everybody excited to start going out and being amongst one another. But I'm not gonna be one of the first to do it. So when you guys do it and you guys come back, no coughing, no sneezing, that's when I'll check that out.
I'll be the canary.
I'll be the guy.
I went and saw a screening of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and all I got was this lousy leftover coronavirus.
That's the movie that you chose to see. You're like,
obviously what they would be showing.
I just love the setup of they're like, hey guys, everything's getting better. You can go out, and you go to Jaden. Oh shit, they're playing 4 Weddings and a Funeral for free. We're there. Get the sitter.
4WAF?
That's my jam. Get a sitter. We're going. And that's the thing that gave you corona.
The Ronies.
The Ronies.
She's a sweet little
My Sharoni.
sweetest little girl in the whole wide world. She make the toughest song, boy,
My
fall deep in
Sharoni.
love.
Girl, you make my cough real. No.
Oh man, I was hoping you were gonna.
I'm sorry.
I was hoping you were gonna pass. You were gonna take that baton and run with it because I didn't have anything.
I didn't have anything either.
So continuing on this train of movie theater news. So we've been talking about this for a while. Obviously, as this thing continues on, this is going to be more and more just what the news is going to be. But we've been talking about a bunch of movies that have either gotten delayed or they've released them digitally early or they've considered releasing them digitally without even going to the theater at all. So now we're starting to see the real, the other shoe is starting to drop, where people are like, finally it's setting in, like, this is going to be a while. We cannot just keep kicking the can down the road on this. So Sony has announced major delays for basically all of their slate of movies. Like basically all of their movies are being pushed to next year. Sony Pictures has pushed back many of its major tentpoles, including Morbius, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the new Ghostbusters movie, the Uncharted movie, Peter Rabbit 2, to next year. Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife has moved from July 10th, 2020 to March 5th, 2021. Jared Leto's Morbius has been pushed from July 31st of this year to March 19th of 2021. The Tom Holland the Tom Holland starring video game adaptation Uncharted went from March 5th, 2021 to October 8th, 2021. And Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, has moved from August 7th of this year to January 15th, 2021. Virtually every major Sony title has moved out of 2020, with the exception of Kevin Hart drama Fatherhood, which moved up to October.
They're like, we're showing it now. We're doing it now.
I was just about to ask you, as filmmakers, you and I, Tyler, you won? I don't know.
Yes.
But as a filmmaker, imagine you spent the last 3 years, you wrote the script, you produced the whole thing, you found investors, you put your whole life into this, and then the Ronies come around and Sony puts on everything. And then they go,
Ronies.
and then they go, yeah, we're gonna push all them other movies, but that Andrew movie, we can put that one out still. That one, put that out.
But what do you mean? The theaters are closed. How? No,
it's fine.
Watch it.
Listen, you're the only competition.
Yeah, put it out
You're
there.
the only competition. You're going to do great. It's going to be big for you. Trust. It's going to be huge.
But people physically can't see it. All theaters are closed.
That's okay.
You're not, Andrew. You're not focusing on the big picture. The big picture is you're the only movie. It's gonna be huge, dude.
Come on.
Start cashing them checks.
We did some early focus testing, and we think that your movie is gonna be great for movie theater rats.
It's like deep in the government. They're like, listen, this plan to put this movie out is working. Everybody's staying home.
Listen. It's gonna be the summer. It's gonna be the hottest month in the year, and all of the mice from the field are going to be looking for shelter. They're going to be going into buildings. This theater is going to be packed with field mice.
This is an untapped source.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I would run right to 21st century. I'd be like, hey, yo, Disney, Sony told me that my movie is going to go screen to mice. I'm not here for that.
My movie's going straight to mice.
Yeah. They courted the mice market?
Ratatouille 2, trash movie.
So here's a couple other. The scheduled moves are the most sweeping by a major studio since the coronavirus pandemic and the subsequent shuttering of most movie theaters in North America in recent weeks. Here's a couple other movies from Colombia that have been. These are these are Sony movies. I don't know why it's. Because Sony owns Columbia. Anyway, I forget the exact details of that. But yeah, Greyhound is being pushed to next year. Fatherhood is coming out this year. Peter Rabbit 2 is being pushed. Ghostbusters, Morbius, Uncharted, and then an untitled Sony Marvel movie is being pushed to next year.
They could just say it's Spider-Man.
It's probably Venom 2.
Oh, that movie looked like trash. Yeah, they can put that one into 2022.
Is the movie Morbius? Am I confusing that with something else called Mobius?
Yeah, Morbius is a Marvel movie. It's Mobius the Living Vampire. It's just like a weird like D-list Marvel character that Sony has the rights to.
Oh,
They're making a movie with Jared Leto.
That looks like trash too.
That sounds terrible.
The Ronix could kill that movie. That looks horrible.
It's just a way to keep the multiverse in the whole thing, because he's gonna be seeing like what's his name, Spider-Man is gonna be in it. Tobey Maguire is gonna be in it,
Oh.
supposedly.
Yeah.
And then Doctor Strange is gonna connect Marvel to that one.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Go ahead and push
Yeah,
that
if you see the
far as you
trailer-
want.
Here for it, I want it.
If you see the trailer for that Morbius movie, Kirk, it looks like it caught the COVID 2 years ago. It looks horrible. Horrible.
God,
That movie was Patient Zero. That movie, they screened that movie in Wuhan, China 2
Facts.
years ago.
Jesus Christ.
If it came out in America, it's a wrap.
We
Everybody's
get it.
dying.
You hate it.
It looks horrible.
Um,
Get Jared Leto back on a stage, dancing and swinging his hips.
I
Another-
agree, but
another movie that's gotten pushed. Another high-profile movie. So, and this one's actually not pushed till next year, but it's still pushed. So, Top Gun, the new Top Gun movie, Top Gun Maverick, is pushed to December. It's now coming out December 23rd.
So were they afraid to ride into the danger zone?
Apparently. Oh man,
right.
you had a lot of sliding room on that. That room is bigger than it looks.
Yeah, Kirk got a big job. He got a good job.
That was like
happy
an
about that.
optical illusion. I did not expect that room to be that big when you rolled that.
And the blur followed you for real. The blur,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a good. Yeah.
I know tech.
Right on.
good blur. I know tech.
Why do you think that they're not going to throw this on Amazon Prime?
Too big, maybe?
Yeah.
If
Such
it's
a
too
big
You
property?
mean throw it on Amazon Prime early?
throw it on Amazon Prime where you can purchase it. Because
Oh, yeah.
if the movie is gonna make money anyways, they are assuming that people are gonna want to watch it. Why not put it on Amazon Prime? The only reason why I'm asking that is because you think, or you maybe think that everything is gonna go the way of streaming. So why not put a big property like a Tom Cruise reboot movie on a streaming platform and run the numbers up? Look at what Tiger King's doing. Look what all these other things are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is just. I mean, I feel like stuff would have transitioned more to streaming years ago, or at the very least, day and date release, if it weren't for the fact that these business institutions, like the movie industry, they hold on to old models like for dear life, like the movie industry and like comics. Speaking of what we were talking about before, they are such volatile markets that they hold on to old models. Like even if they're not working anymore, they're just too scared to experiment because they're so scared of everything just going tits up that they just think like, this worked. We've been doing this for decades. We've been doing this for literally 100 years. This is how it's worked since the beginning. We're just gonna keep doing this. They even when it's failing, and even when it's been failing for years, they just are too scared to try something different until they're forced to, which is what's happening now. Like, you think that Disney would have ever released one of their big movies like 2 weeks after it premiered in theaters if they just literally didn't have to because of what was going on? Definitely not.
Yeah.
But now we'll start to see the results of that. Of like, maybe 2 months from now, Disney will give data on how successful the release of Onward for digital purchase was, and then we'll start to see the effects of this, and maybe it's a good thing in the long run of like, not for the movie theater industry obviously, and hopefully the movie theater industry doesn't go away and it still finds its place, but maybe it's a good thing in the long run where people were forced to try these things out. Universal was forced. Their hand was forced to take this risk and try out putting Trolls digital only without ever releasing in theaters. But maybe in 2 months they'll be like, oh snap, like that was crazy. Like
Yeah.
we made as much money from that as we did from if we had released it in theater. Like I'm just whatever hypothetical thing. And maybe this forced experimentation will have some results of like helping the evolution of movie distribution along.
Right.
Okay, and one more question. Do you ever feel like you're watching something on a streaming platform and feel like it was shot for the intention of being on a streaming platform?
Well, I mean, number one, if we're talking about Quibi, like that's their whole selling point is that everything is shot to be watched on a phone.
Yes, but think more about like Netflix or Hulu that has the appeal of you can watch on your computer, your TV, mobile, like that cross appeal. Not so much Quibi because it's made for phone.
Yeah, for other streaming services, yes, and we've actually talked about this, and actually, you kind of had disagreed with me a little bit about that because remember when we talked about my whole thing about the talking on the phone over the hood? Remember that whole thing?
Yes.
Where I just was thinking about it. I had been thinking about this for a long time, and just I watch a lot of streaming service stuff, and to me, it feels like stuff that's made for streaming services is not like bad or like not as good as when it's made for a movie theater or network television, but it definitely feels like they cut corners in certain subtle ways where when you watch an original show made for a streaming service, it definitely feels like a streaming service show. It feels different than a theatrical film or a cable or network television show. And not necessarily in a bad way, although maybe it is in a bad way. I don't know. I'm not saying it, charged one way or the other necessarily, but it definitely feels different to me.
Okay.
I don't see a difference.
I don't see it. I don't see a
I
difference
only
either.
watch them on my TV anyway. So
The one thing that I notice about streaming services is that they do less coverage. A lot of streaming shows, like you notice that they're doing a lot more wide master shots, a lot more like handheld stuff, a lot more Steadicam stuff. They're moving the camera more, and there's just a lot less coverage. And that's just one thing where I just feel like they must shoot their things more quickly, and they must skip some of the steps that more traditional productions do and get less coverage, because I definitely notice it in the end result.
Or
Yeah,
it's
that's not
tight.
something. I think that's something that I'm not real. If I saw that, I'd be like, that's fine. It's still, it still feels like a movie to me. It still reads like a movie to me. If the story's good and they have good people in it, I don't really care.
I feel like, once again, I'm not even necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but I do know from a perspective of making movies and shooting things, when you're shooting something, especially when you're shooting like a super low budget thing or a no budget thing or something independent or whatever, you become very aware of time management and scheduling and budgeting down to a micro level, and it can be very easy to look at a shoot and say, if we shoot this thing with 3 setups for one scene, so that we get a master, we get 2 setups of coverage, or whatever. Even if this scene is going to take 8 hours to shoot or 12 hours to shoot. But if we shoot what we have to shoot, if I map out in my mind what this scene is going to look like, and I know like we don't need that angle, we don't need this setup, and we only need certain parts of this setup, and we pretty much only need this setup right here. We need like a third of this setup over here, and then we just don't need that setup at all. This shoot will take 3 hours, and in theory, we'll get everything that we need. And that proposition is very enticing when you're shooting independently or on a small budget. But then when you go into editing, it quickly becomes clear of like, oh man, like I can do this and I can get away with this, but I wish that I had just gotten that setup, like literally, because there's just this one little part that like I needed this little shot to stitch these two shots together, and I didn't get that setup, so I can't stitch these two shots together. And so it's like little subtle things like that, where it's just like when you're you can still make the thing, you can still do it, and you can still complete it, and it costs less and it takes less time, and it still ends with a result that's mostly fine and it can be very good. But in subtle ways, it's like, man, I really just wish I had gotten that thing. It would have just made this whole thing a little bit more polished.
So Samuel L. Jackson has spoken about that somewhat recently, where he said that there's these new young directors who, you know, have a budget, so they have time on their hand, and they want to get a wide, they want to get a medium, they want to get 3/4, they want to get an extra tight, they want to get everything, they want to grab as much as possible. And he actually really dislikes that because he's an older guy. When they were shooting on film used to cost something like $30,000 per second. So it was a very expensive process. So it was all about saving as much money as possible. But now everybody's shooting on digital, where that's no longer a big deal. And he was just like, I don't want to shoot all these angles and all these things. You know, I want to shoot the wide, I want to shoot the medium, and I want to go back to my trailer. And it's just it's just interesting, you know, the generations that are, you know, still working right now, and how they're doing with streaming. Because in streaming, you're presented with two things: shooting quickly, but if you have the time and the money, you can shoot as much as you want, you know, and it can come out whenever you want because it's streaming. It can come out whenever, and it can be pushed and whatever. So, you know, those are a few things that I noticed. You can tell the ones that they've taken their time on a streaming platform, and then you could tell, hey, we need something to go out in July.
Yeah, and you can also tell that like they strategically put more effort and polish into the first couple episodes, and then like purposely let the quality control slip for the later ones, because I'm assuming the equation is like hook them up front, make the first couple episodes as good as possible, and then as a cost saving measure, we're not going to put that much work into the rest of them because we've already got people. They'll be hooked into the story. They'll want to keep watching even if the quality kind of takes a little bit of a dip. And so I'll notice that like there's a lot of Netflix shows specifically where the first 2 episodes are really good and really solid, and then the rest of the other 8 episodes they don't become bad. It's not like 2 good episodes and then the rest of it sucks, but they just take a noticeable dip in like overall polish. And it seems like they're strategically cutting corners as a cost-saving measure or as an efficiency measure. And another one, I don't know if you guys on Amazon Prime, if you watch Hunters.
Yeah, I just watched it last night. It's a great show.
Yeah, the pilot is really well made and really solid. And then literally every episode after that is not bad, but it takes a noticeable dip in polish. Like it's crazy how like the first episode could just be like on network television, and then the rest of I think there's 10 episodes. The rest of them all feel much cheaper. And once again, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not saying cheaper as in bad, but just you notice that they spent less money and less time making them than the pilot.
Yeah.
It's a great show.
Have you seen Fleabag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fleabag
rocks.
does not diminish, and in
Yeah,
fact, it's better.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got the Firefly though, the Firefly treatment.
What?
The
do you mean?
It's done before it's over.
No, Firefly got canceled. Fleabag didn't get canceled. She's just like, yeah, I'm done. I've told that story.
I know. I just mean in my heart.
Your heart means nothing to me.
I mean, now we're getting into like the weeds of non-nostalgic things, but I actually kind of like that because I don't even know. I don't even know where that. I don't know where that show could possibly go after the end of season 2. I don't even know where that show could go. It does feel like it ended, and it was just
as well it should.
What up?
And then another piece of movie industry news. There is a rumor that was there is some intel from a notable movie reviewer that says she has inside sources who told her this. Her name is Grace Randolph. She's a movie reviewer and a host of a very popular YouTube show called Beyond the Trailer. And she claims that she has insider sources at Disney that say that Disney is considering releasing Black Widow and Mulan on Disney Plus.
No fucking way.
Skipping the theater and putting them on Disney Plus and also digital, like the same thing they did with Onward, where it's there's a timed release. They put it out for purchase for $20, and then 3 weeks later they put it on Disney Plus.
That would be crazy.
I hope so. That would be fun. I would love that.
Yeah, I would.
That's real exciting. If it happens.
Yeah, I mean, what
would it go on Disney Plus free after 3 weeks?
Yeah, if you got that Disney Plus.
You say free, but if they put Mulan and Black Widow on Disney Plus, they're gonna get an influx of new subscribers.
That's true. You're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's money that you paying every single month. So
that's right.
I would go watch it. I have a way to watch Disney Plus, so yeah, I can check it out.
I have that sounded way shady.
It definitely did.
I have a way?
Is the way that you can watch Disney Plus is literally just signing into my account, which I gave you the account info for like
you know
weeks
what?
ago.
I totally forgot you gave me that. No, it's somebody else's account. I should have just been using it.
So that's really, there's really nothing more to that. I mean, that's literally such a rumor and so vague that it could have gone in Can You Go for that, but I don't feel like it makes sense to do a Can You Go for that for a rumored release date.
Yeah.
Right.
I have one thing that I want to mention about a previous Can You Go for that. I know the structure today is all over the place, but remember you guys asked about Jason versus what was that?
Freddy
Jason
versus
versus Freddy versus Jason.
Jason versus
Versus Tyler.
Right. Yeah. So I never watched any of the Freddy movies or Freddy versus Jason or anything like that. But during this quarantine, my roommate has taken the Freddy movies into liking. I didn't get the chance to watch the first one, but I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 2, 3, 4, and the one made in.
You started that franchise so weird.
She watched the first one, and I wasn't there for it. So I watched 2, 3, 4, and the one made in 2010. And I still can go for that. They can make more. There's like 30 of them. Make some more. Make some money. Go for it.
I mean, I'm glad that you liked them, but you watched that franchise so weird.
Kelby just likes seeing like bad kids being put down.
Part 2.
No,
Part 2 is the weirdest one. Number 1.
It's really bad. Part 2 is bad, but every other one is really good.
Yeah, and it's regarded as the worst one.
No,
and
it
was-
couldn't be worse than that MTV one. That MTV one was bad.
What's the MTV one?
Looking.
That is the one where there is Freddie goes into the classroom with the little black girl. Her name is Toy Newkirk, and he's like, "Wanna suck face?" You remember that one?
Why are you calling that the MTV one?
The MTV one.
When I researched it, I want to say that might have been the fourth one. When I researched it, it said that Nightmare on Elm Street is regarded as the MTV Nightmare on Elm Street.
Huh.
Wait, let me figure out what you're
Sounds
talking about
weird.
here.
Did it have a
I've
lot
got-
of MTV stars or?
Yeah.
No, because when you watch it, you notice that there is a definite kind of pop culture type influence in that movie. Like, I can definitely say that. It goes from being something that is, I want to say, unique and it had its own flavor to that one being like, oh, okay. Like, I can definitely see MTV would have made a movie like that.
What year was that?
Oh,
That had to be
88.
maybe.
Wait,
It's 1988.
Is that the one
19
with Toy Newkirk? I'm gonna
What
tell
is
you
her-
right now.
what is her name?
Toy Newkirk.
Toy Newkirk.
Toy, and their last name is Newkirk.
Tell you what, if Kirk keeps putting in this performance, we'll get a new Kirk on this show.
Uh-oh.
Wow, that was hurtful.
Let's see. So,
He-
yeah, 1988.
He actually
correct.
fixed the issues that you couldn't fix today, so
I gave you that
yeah.
Top Gun pun.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I had no idea what you were talking about, but yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street
that
4.
There's
so
definitely
I mean,
a shift.
I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 isn't very good, but I think that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is worse. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is kind of regarded as the worst one because it was sort of like rushed out as like the first one was a sleeper hit. It did really well, and they weren't expecting it to do well. So they were like, we need a sequel. We need a sequel. So it was kind of it was rushed out. And there's just a lot of weird stuff about part 2. There's a whole documentary about it.
It's real bad.
That it's like, and so to start on that movie is so weird because if that was the first and only Nightmare on Elm Street movie I ever saw, I'd just be like, what is this weird movie where like it's got this like really weird like subtle homoerotic like themes of just like I mean, because Freddy Krueger, he's already like a child murderer, and then like
And
he wants to be inside of the guy. It's so weird.
Yeah. It's not a great movie,
and-
but I did notice that every other one is actually pretty good. When I looked up the reviews for the
But
first
part-
one,
part
it was
3
good. Part 3 was good. 5 was good.
Part 3 is the best one. It's my favorite. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 is my favorite.
The Dream Warriors?
Yeah, Dream Warriors with
Dream Warriors.
with
I know
with,
a guy that's in the Dream Warriors.
Who?
You know Patricia Arquette?
Which guy?
Scream, Andrew.
It was his name is Ira Hayden. He was the nerdy kid in the wheelchair.
Oh, I think you told me that
cool.
before.
Yeah.
I looked
he's a real
up,
nice dude. Real nice dude. He's in Time
Really?
Lock.
Patricia Arquette's the main
Hey.
character of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Tyler.
Yeah. And so was Larry Fishburne. Back
Oh,
when he
actually-
was Larry.
I didn't even realize this, but
Larry
it's the
Fishburne.
Yeah, he's in the movie.
Yeah, before
and-
he was Lawrence.
it's the first movie that Patricia Arquette was ever in. It's her first film.
Oh, really?
I didn't even
Wow.
know that.
and she was a star. That's crazy.
But yeah, Dream Warriors is great, and
It is
Part
good.
4 is not very good, and then one of the best ones that I love is which is not, it's not like a main numbered sequel movie, but it's New Nightmare. Did you watch that one?
I think I saw that one.
Is that number 5?
Was that the 2010 version?
No,
No, the 2010 version, I watched that, so
We
it's
don't
bad.
we don't talk about the 2010 version.
My bad, sorry.
New Nightmare is like, it's not even really it's not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's like this weird. I mean, it's really good, but it's basically a movie that it's written and directed by Wes Craven. So it's
That's
like the same.
That's 5.
It's the same filmmaker, but it's not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But it's about the real world. It's basically about the actors who played the characters in the
I
first.
did see that. That is good.
It's about the actors who played the characters in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So Heather Langenkamp, who is Nancy in the first one, which you haven't seen it, but you should watch the first one at some point.
She's in the third one.
Yeah, she's the main character, and she's herself. She's her actress self. Robert Englund is in it as himself. He's the guy who plays Freddy Krueger, and Wes Craven is in it as himself. And in the movie, it's about them basically like 10 years later, and suddenly Freddy Krueger starts appearing to them in real life, and he's like a demon. And it's a weird meta-textual movie about like the real life actors from Nightmare on Elm Street being haunted by Freddy Krueger, the fictional character from the movies, and it's so
That's
good.
5, yeah.
It's
I'm
really
gonna check that out.
New Nightmare is great. Part 3 is great. Part 1 is great. Part 2 is pretty bad, but if you're a fan of the franchise, you're gonna love all of them because that's just whenever you're a fan of horror movies, you kind of accept them warts and all. Why were we talking about this? Where did we get?
Because Kelby brought up that his roommate is watching them, and he's.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So I totally I nerded out about Nightmare on Elm Street, but you can finish saying whatever you were saying.
Oh yeah. So like I was saying, I thought it was very interesting that every other one was really good, and you feel it. Because as I was watching them, I did a lot of like just looking up who's in it. Just kind of the behind the scenes. Sometimes if I really liked a character, I would look them up on Facebook, and it's kind of cool seeing like, oh, we have like a friend in common or something like that. But then it's kind of sad because you're watching them, they're all young and youthful, and then it's like 30 years later. So yeah, but they're good, and I'm totally here for them making make 10 more. Go for it.
Yeah, as long as they just aren't like that reboot that they did with Jackie Earl Haley as Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, that thing.
I saw that one last night.
Yeah.
Visually, it was nice.
Good old Platinum Dunes. Yeah. So, people have been asking for this for years. If you aren't familiar, in the 90s, George Lucas decided that the Star Wars movies weren't good enough. And there was a lot of things that he wished he had done, or he wished he had the money to do, or he wished that the technology had existed at the time in the 70s and 80s when he made the movies to do. So he did the remasters, where they went through the movies and they dramatically changed them. They put a bunch of new stuff in them, mostly a bunch of weird, wonky, early 90s CGI stuff. They took old sets and scenes and they replaced them with like really crappy 90s CGI, which was technically better in as far as like the original set was really small and kind of low budget, and then the CGI scenes were like these big, expansive environments that were much more epic looking, even though they looked terrible. They added a bunch of characters and animals and monsters and aliens to scenes. There's like, most notably, there's a scene where they're walking through like the desert in Tatooine looking for them. And originally it was like a couple stormtroopers kind of standing on a sand dune looking around. And then they added in just like 5 more stormtroopers, and then like a stormtrooper riding on top of a monster. And a big monster standing in the background, and it's just like the scene is just choked with all this early 90s CGI. Most famously of all, they changed it to where Greedo in the altercation between Han Solo and Greedo in the Tatooine cantina, Greedo pulls out his gun and shoots at Han Solo first before Han Solo shoots him and kills him, and it's because George Lucas didn't like that Han Solo just like killed him like without any provocation, because he thought that it made him seem like a murderer or like a bad person. So he wanted to add it to where he was acting in self-defense, basically. So they did these remasters, and they have not gone over well at all. I think that, you know, with the prequels that came out in the early 2000s and the remasters, that was really where all of the bad faith towards George Lucas came from, where people basically just decided that George Lucas didn't understand his own movies. He didn't understand why people liked them. He needed to stop meddling with them. He needed to stop going in and trying to change them and make them more of what he thought they should be, and that they belonged to the people now. And George Lucas's position on that was always just like, go to hell. These are my movies. I'll do whatever I want with them. And
Facts.
I think the fan backlash even pushed him to be more contrarian. I think if fans had never made such a stink about it, I think that he would have made both versions readily available. I think that he would have had the remasters, and then also the originals would have been available. But because everybody so vehemently criticized him and hated these things so much and told them that they sucked and he needed to put out the originals, he like actively made it impossible to get a hold of the original versions. They went out of print, they stopped becoming available, and George Lucas basically, you know, made the direct statement of like, the remasters are Star Wars. This is what Star Wars is. The old version, that's not a thing. That's like, think of it as a first draft or like an old version of a piece of software. We've updated it. This is what Star Wars is now. That thing is done. It's gone. And as much as I kind of philosophically agree with him on that, the remasters are awful. It's like they're just so bad, and they've aged even poorly now. Like, they were bad then, whenever I saw them in the theater in 1994 when I was a kid. But now, like,
Garbage.
old movies from the early 1900s until the 80s, if they're well made, they tend to age very well, because practical effects and the old techniques of, you know, old school Hollywood are kind of timeless. But as the 90s rolled in and CGI was developed and people started incorporating it more into movies, now when you go back from the 90s to like maybe 2010, now technology is very advanced and a lot of CGI looks very good. But I think from like 1992 until 2010, there are a lot of movies that you go back and look at them and you're like, this looks like garbage. This looks like dog shit. Because the technology just wasn't there. And it's so dated, and it so ages the movie that I think pre-90s movies don't really have that, because those practical effects are just kind of timeless if they're done well. Like you go back and watch John Carpenter's The Thing. That movie just looks amazing. All those effects, the stop motion and the animatronics, they look great. And then you go and you watch some horror movie from 2006 with like crappy CGI blood spatter, and you're just like, this is offensive to look at.
Are you talking about the remake of The Thing?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's a perfect example. They did a prequel to The Thing that has that exact affliction. It just looks terrible. So for years and years, people have been like, put out the originals, put out the originals, put out the originals. And there's been a lot of like fan-led efforts. There's something called the despecialized editions, and it's basically somebody took old laser disc prints of the original Star Wars movies before the special editions, and they upscaled them to 4K, and they've released them for free online. So you can download a torrent of the despecialized edition, which is the OG, best quality original versions of Star Wars that you can get, because Laserdisc was very good quality. It was way better than VHS. But there's never been any official releases of the original trilogy before it was specialized. And since Disney bought Lucasfilm / Star Wars, that started a second wave of people being like, all right, so now Disney, you own Star Wars. George Lucas doesn't own it anymore. Give the people what they want. Release the original versions. And they still haven't done it, really. But now it has been announced that the original trilogy, the original versions, are coming to Disney+. And I know that was a long walk to get there. But you people at home that maybe aren't necessarily familiar with it, you need to understand the journey that this has been to the day when the original non-special editions are dropping on Disney+. In a statement recently appointed, Disney CEO Bob Chapek stated, "We are so excited to finally give Star Wars fans the versions they grew up on and provide families with an opportunity to connect over their shared love of this franchise." And it's also to be noted that they're doing this as just a little show of goodwill for families during the quarantine. So if anything else, if at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, when we're 3 months out, however long it needs to take, and we're kind of maybe getting a little bit, I don't think we'll ever quite go back to normal. I think things are irrevocably changed forever. But when we start getting a little bit back more to normalcy, we can look back and say the coronavirus got the original editions of Star Wars released.
All right, now my question after all of this, I'm sorry, Kirk.
No, go for it.
It's a fast question. Is Jar
Not
Jar
have a
Binks
fast answer.
is Jar Jar Binks in any of these?
No, he was created
it's
for
trash.
episode 1.
Nah, I'm good then. I don't want to watch it.
You've never seen the original Star Wars?
I've never seen anything Star Wars except for episode 1 of The Mandalorian, which I don't want to watch anymore.
Did George Lucas write the 1 through 3 as well?
No, he wrote the first one, and then
He didn't direct the
what?
third.
Wait.
Well, George Lucas wrote and directed the first one. Irvin Kershner wrote Empire Strikes Back, and just blanking on names right now.
I'm not talking about the original trilogy. I'm talking about the.
I'm seeming like a Star Wars noob, but it's just my
You're a
brain.
poser.
My brain won't remember names.
Oh my God, this is terrible.
I'm looking it up now.
Well,
I'm
did
so
George
ashamed.
Lucas create Jar Jar Binks?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Lawrence Kasdan. That's the name I was trying to think of. Lawrence Kasdan. He wrote Empire Strikes Back, and like he ended up writing the Han Solo movie, the Han Solo story or whatever. So Irvin Kershner directed Empire Strikes Back. Lawrence Kasdan wrote it, and originally the first director that George Lucas approached about directing Empire Strikes Back was David Lynch, and he turned it down.
Oh,
That would be a crazy movie.
do it.
And
Go
and
ahead.
then Richard Marquand directed Return of the Jedi, and Lawrence Kasdan wrote that one as well.
This whole thing is soaked in sadness. There's no good person in this.
Yeah, definitely
Because-
not George Lucas.
George Lucas, listen, again, I don't hate Star Wars. I'm not a huge fan. Mandalorian's fantastic. But fuck him for doing all that stuff, all the like picking with it. Like, I'm going to add this and I'm going to add that. And oh, well, Han Solo was never supposed to shoot him first. It was always the case where that other guy was going to shoot him first. It's I'm going to get real Tylery. It's just a rich guy fucking around with his toys.
Yeah, he's also like he's changed these things multiple times. Like it's not like he did the special editions. Like there's other edition. Like there was the special editions in the '90s, and then whenever they released them on VHS, they changed them again. He made more changes, and then when they released them on DVD years later, he made more changes. And then when they released them like digitally to purchase on iTunes or whatever, he made like every time they do a release under the guise of like going in and like remastering them, he adds more stuff. And there's like 5 different weird versions of the movies. And like with the whole Han shot first thing, there's like 3 different versions of it. The first one is they're sitting Han Solo is like sitting at this bar table, and he's sitting back like this, and he's got his hand under this table, and he's arguing with Greedo, and then he just pulls out his gun and just murders him. Like that's what happens in the original version of the Star Wars. Han Solo just indiscriminately kills this guy. So
he's a bad guy though.
Yeah, he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy. So it's not like he killed an innocent person.
So in the special
killed a
edition,
criminal.
They're all bad guys, though. So
Yeah.
In the special edition, they add this part right before that where it cuts to Greedo. He pulls out his gun and he shoots at Han Solo, and the laser gun shoots at his head, and then Han Solo moves his head to the side, and the laser gun shoots the wall behind him, and then he shoots them. And the way that they did that was they just crappily CGI'd Harrison Ford's head to like move to the side like this, and it looks really weird. It doesn't look natural at all. His head doesn't tilt to the side because they couldn't do that because the footage, so his head just physically moved to the side like that. Like he goes, ugh, and it's like creepy looking. And then there's a version that they came out with where they kind of like shoot at the same time because like I guess he wanted to show that like Han Solo's reflexes were really fast. So he like bridged the gap and sped up the time between when Greedo shoots and whenever Han Solo shoots. And then there's like a new version for when they released it digitally recently where he changed it again, where I can't even remember what the change was now, but he's like he just has like he just keeps
he can't leave
tinkering
alone.
with it. Yeah.
And my take on it is, dude, go make a movie. Go make a different movie. Stop fucking around with this stuff. I don't even care if you fuck around with it. But
the last time
different stuff.
The last time he did that, we got Red Tails. So
Okay, fair enough.
What's the problem? What's the problem with
reason-
Red Tails? A legendary movie.
But the thing that bugs me,
a legendary historical event, but the movie is not good.
There's no good.
Red Tails.
So everyone in here is in the wrong. He's in the wrong. The people who are bitching about it.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Star
his
Wars
movie.
fans
It's
are
his
like
movie.
the most toxic fandom ever. They are the kings of toxic fandom.
So those people can chill the fuck out too. And then the fact that the coronavirus is the thing that brings this thing back, all of this is depressing.
Yeah.
All of it.
all of this is
All of this is just awful. A guy did a crappy thing, crappy people complained about it, and a horrible pandemic brought this thing to life.
Facts.
No,
Go ahead, Kirk. I like that.
That's my hot take.
But also, I would
this
like
is
to-
the saddest
like-
story we're
Tell
going
me,
to go over.
am I doing this right? Speak, King.
I don't say king all that much. You'd have to speak. Yeah, preach, man.
You
Something
say
like
king
that,
all the
know?
time. I hear you. You say king.
Sorry. Okay, I say king as a joke because I think it's dumb.
Wow, ouch. I
This
took
whole
those
time I
kings
thought
to
when you
heart.
said that to me, I was like a
You
good.
called me Ivory King, and I felt real strong.
No, Tyler.
You've,
Ivory King
you've
is
slacked
something
me,
else. That
King.
means
Oh
something.
god, oh god.
That's like you're an evil monster.
I've done something you've liked, and you've slacked me. Go ahead, King. And now I know that it doesn't mean anything.
No.
Damn.
No.
I would also like to
I
point
was
out
making
that
fun
both
of it
you,
so
all
much
of you really,
that I eventually started using it.
all of you were the same people saying that you didn't want people watching movies at 1.5 speed because it wasn't the way the director wanted it, the creator. So if the creator thought that he wanted to go back and change things to make them as he saw it originally, don't you think that it's his right?
I mean, like I said in the beginning, I said at up top, I philosophically agree
Yeah.
with
Gotcha.
with what he said, but I think that I guess there must be some kind of a line, and I feel
Right.
like George Lucas has defined that line. Like
Gotcha.
as much as I agree that the movie should be however the director wanted it to, and it's their art and they should be able to do it. Like if George Lucas one day was like, I think that Star Wars should have Hitler in it, and he should be the good guy. And I'm gonna change Luke Skywalker into Hitler. And
Hashtag here for Hitler.
obviously, I don't think that that's right. That's he's crossed a line there. So I feel like there's got to be a line to it, and I feel like George Lucas crosses that line. Because I mean, as much as I think that the creators should be able to do whatever they want with their work, another thing that everybody, it's an old adage that everybody knows is like, there's no such thing as a finished work. You have to just abandon it at some point. Nothing is ever finished. You just have to decide whenever you're done working on it. And George Lucas just, for decades, has been caught in this loop where he wants to perfect Star Wars, and it's just impossible, and he should just not obsess over that so much.
He's got too much time and too much money.
Too much time on my hands, got too much time on my hands.
That actually sounded very good, Andrew. You sounded like The Weeknd.
I've been listening to it enough that I've picked up his singing voice.
Very good. I heard it at least 15 times the last 4 days.
Yep, it's good, so good.
Almost every single song.
Yep. So remember last episode when we joked about Robert Downey Jr. getting cast as Harley Quinn, and then they reboot Suicide Squad, and this time it actually does really well. Remember when we joked about that?
Vaguely.
So Birds of Prey had come out, and as we all kind of know from the news, it didn't do very well in the box office. And then we talked about a couple episodes ago, I think the first quarantine episode we've done, that they released Bloodshot, the Vin Diesel movie, in theaters, and it tanked. It was like the worst box office performance of any movie ever, or something like that. It was something, I forget the exact details, but it was very bad. So, right around the same time-ish, they released Bloodshot and Birds of Prey digitally on VOD, and Bloodshot outsold Birds of Prey. So,
Wow.
It's unexpected.
last week, both Bloodshot and Birds of Prey, two comic book movies with wildly different critical receptions, hit digital platforms early amid coronavirus concerns. But despite the abysmal critical reception to Bloodshot, which sits at 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, and favorable reviews for Birds of Prey, 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, Bloodshot came out on top. Sony's Bloodshot and Warner Brothers' Birds of Prey were both made available for purchase on digital platforms on March 24th. Sorry. Bloodshot had seen low box office returns in the weekend it hit theaters, mostly owing to the fact that it was one of the last films to hit theaters before mass coronavirus affected closures. I'm trying to see if there's any numbers. Yeah, I don't think they actually. Yeah, there's no numbers, but yeah, it beat Birds of Prey in VOD sales, which is just like Jesus, like just.
I mean, the answer here is pretty obvious.
Give that movie a mercy kill.
People like men.
Yeah.
People like men. Every time a like female, I guess you can call it a female-centric movie comes out, people find a reason not to want to go watch it. The Ghostbusters all-female movie, people found a reason not to want to go watch it. The Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 8. Ocean's 8 all-female remake. Everybody was just
good
like,
movie.
People like men. That's the thing.
Well, it's not just that people like men. It's that, like, especially in this current time we're in, like, whenever somebody puts out a movie that is like, the concept is it's an all-female version of Ocean's 11 or it actually makes people angry. Like, they feel like it's like somebody making like a political statement, and it like makes them mad, and then like it creates this feedback loop of backlash.
Yeah.
Where the thing, just because it's a movie that's like starring all women, or it's kind of like women centric, or it's about like, it's either a movie that's like, oh, we've replaced like a cast that was once all men with women, or it's a movie where it's like portraying this like strong badass female character that's like being put forth as like equal to like male action heroes. It like pisses people off, and then they do stuff like review bomb the movie, and they endlessly talk shit about it, and that stuff has an effect. Like, creating negative reviews of things and word of mouth negativity, like, that has a real effect on people going and seeing movies. Like,
yeah,
you can't, if people are affected socially by other people and their viewpoints on things, so it creates this
100%.
just feedback loop of things. Things may or may not have done poorly on their own with all the advantages in the world. We don't know. Like, maybe Birds of Prey would have still tanked if it didn't have such a backlash against it. Maybe Ghostbusters, the 2016 Ghostbusters, would have still tanked if it didn't have such a backlash against it. But we'll never know, because they had such intense backlashes against them that they just got completely fucked over.
Yeah, there's obstacles getting put in their way that don't need to be there. So they're just naturally getting screwed before a movie even comes out because of all this negative press, as opposed to basing it on, is it good or not? It's already got the uphill battle of, well, it's there's a bunch of women in it, so it's already unfair.
Yeah, it's definitely something like that. I think studios need to probably take a look at that more specifically, because I think the solution is not so much making female versions of things or female reboots of things, but creating original pieces where people cannot compare, oh, the guy version was better, or the white version was better, and then they're just making a black version. Like, make something that's original for these people, because nobody ever goes back and says, oh, the male version of Tomb Raider is better. You know, nobody ever says that, because that is an original piece that served its purpose and no one can compare it to anything. But when you come out with a Harley Quinn who is in a universe, in Batman universe, Joker came out in a similar time, you can easily just say, I'd rather go see Joker, and Joker and Harley Quinn face the same problems where pretty sure they're both rated R movies. It was very difficult for kids to go watch them, and yet Joker made $1 billion, and Harley Quinn is struggling. So there needs to be that, like, okay, people don't like reimaginings, and then you just take this out that they loved. You just take the man out and put the woman, and it should work just fine. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. So give them original pieces where no one can compare them, and it'll work.
But you're assuming then that people want original works with females as well, which is not necessarily, unfortunately, the case.
Yeah,
I think they do.
I think it has a better. I mean, because like Atomic Blonde did well, certainly did better than fucking Ghostbusters or that Charlie Angel. Well, I don't know, but yeah.
Captain Marvel did very well, and it wasn't even that good.
But that. So now I'm not sure what you're arguing about. You just argued against your point.
No, because Captain Marvel is not. I don't think Captain Marvel is a reimagining of something else. I don't think Captain Marvel.
Birds of Prey.
I feel like Birds of Prey is too similar to. As me watching it, it's too similar to other models that did not work. Compared to Captain Marvel, I feel like
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad is very bad, But Birds of Prey is not that bad. But it's in that realm of
I think with Birds of Prey, the reason the issue I don't think the issue with Birds of Prey was that it was a reimagining of something with women or whatever. I think it was the Suicide Squad movie came out, everybody hated it.
It's bad.
And then it was attached to that psychologically. And so whenever Birds of Prey was coming out, people saw it, they saw it as like, you're trying to force this like female character down our throats because you already made a movie. It already sucked. We don't want it anymore. But now you're giving us another one. Yeah. And so that's where it kind of happened. Where it's like,
and at the same time,
people think that Hollywood is like trying to shove certain agendas down their throats, and that's where some of the anger comes from.
It could be possible too because recently, what's the movie that came out with the girls who worked at Fox?
Bombshell.
Bombshell just came out, and that's another like movie that some people saw as a divisive tool. So there's a lot of things kind of like working against the movement type movies like Harley Quinn and things like that. So it's unfortunate. There's so many factors sprinkled into it.
Yeah. Last story before we take a quick break. Not a whole lot of meat on the bone here, but there was a Resident Evil TV show being developed for Netflix, and it has shut down indefinitely.
Good.
So, according to a new report, so the show is being developed by Constantine Films for Netflix, in partner with Capcom, which is the video game company that produces the Resident Evil games. And according to a new report, nearly all of Constantine Films' projects have been shut down around the world, which includes Resident Evil. We first learned that the zombie-filled game was getting the small screen treatment last year. Must have been a news piece that came about before Nostalgicast started, because I don't remember reading about this. We certainly didn't talk about it. Sadly, it could be a little longer before we see that what Netflix has in store for us on this one. Head of Constantine Films, Martin Moskowitz, had this to say: "Our offices are pretty much closed with very, very few people working who are not necessary. So accounting, basically, we had to shut down over 30 shows altogether, mainly stuff done in Germany and in the Czech Republic and Romania." So we were going to get a Resident Evil show, and now it's shut down.
No.
We're shutting it down. Yeah, there's not a lot to talk about there because I like the Resident Evil games. Definitely played them when I was growing up and loved them. Resident Evil 2 is one of the best video games ever made, but I never liked any of the movies. In fact, I was very disappointed by the movie because I was a huge Resident Evil fan whenever the first one came out, and then I was like, what the heck is this? Where's Leon? Where's Jill? So, I didn't really care if they made a Resident Evil show for Netflix.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that.
Nope.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up the show. We'll do our regular segment. And
After these messages, we'll be right back.
And we're back. And now it's time for a regular segment where we talk about rumors and unsubstantiated stories in the world of pop culture and nostalgia, and give our opinions on whether we think it's a good idea or not. The segment's called
Can you go for that? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, can you? Oh, can you go for that? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, can you? Oh, can you go for that? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, can you? Oh, can you go for that? Can you go for that? Can you go for that?
Quarantine Edition. We got one story, and this was an 11th hour thing, because we originally had no stories for Can You Go For That, which I think is gonna happen more and more, because as the throttling of projects and things being worked on and announced happens, there's gonna be less rumors about things existing.
All right,
I'll
I
start
have a
rumors.
solution. Yeah, I was gonna say I have a solution to that. We should just make something up and then say, could we go for that? Now we're not gonna say like, oh, Disney's in the works for no, but like, what if we Tyler it and say, what if they make a Freddy versus Jason versus
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Ursula?
Oh my God, Kelby, I love this idea. So every episode we could take. Well, maybe we do all four of us. I don't know. Maybe that would take too long, or maybe we take turns every episode. But we all come up with an idea for a thing, like an idea for a reboot of, like, it could be as simple as, what if they rebooted what if they rebooted Small Wonder? And that's
The
just
one where
that.
she's a little robot.
Yeah, just as simple as that. Or it could be as complicated as, like, my idea for a Home Alone reboot, where it was Millie Bobby Brown as a female Kevin McAllister, and then Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key were the burglars. Like, it could be anywhere in between that. And then we basically, like, pitch an idea for a reboot thing, and then we all say, can we go for that? And it becomes more, it's less of a rumor thing, and it becomes more of a, like, show and tell, like an idea show and tell. And then we all just kind of, like, give our brutally honest opinion about whether we would want to see that or not.
Facts.
You know what Lou would say? Lou would be like, you just giving those ideas away. And how are you going to get paid on that? He needs his
No,
cut.
that's
That
That's
got
facts.
cut.
I mean, socialism,
I'm here for it.
socialism, Kirk. Yeah, we should definitely do
You
that.
guys are
We should,
joking around.
we,
Yeah, I
should,
love it.
we should do that next episode. I love that idea.
Done.
Okay.
Maybe I'll follow up an email. I don't know whether it's all four of us come up with an idea. Yeah, we should all four come up with an idea. I feel like that wouldn't take
Yeah.
too long. The one story for this week is Ryan Reynolds is in talks to star in and produce a Dragon's Lair film adaptation for Netflix. Netflix is adapting the popular 80s video game Dragon's Lair into a live-action feature, with Ryan Reynolds in talks to produce and star. It Chapter 2 producer Roy Lee will produce under his Vertigo Entertainment label, along with Trevor Engelson of Underground, Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and Joe Pomeroy. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and The Croods' two scribes, Daniel and Kevin Hageman, are crafting the screenplay. Created by Rick Dyer and Don Bluth, the Dragon's Lair franchise was the first released for arcades in 1983. The premise centers around Dirk the Daring, a knight who sets out to rescue Princess Daphne from the evil dragon Singe and a wizard named Mordrock. And yeah, if you don't know, back in the 80s, back in 1983 specifically, Don Bluth So Don Bluth was an animator at Disney in the 60s and 70s, and he was part of the Disney animation team during a time when they were transitioning away from the traditional classical style of Disney animation. So when you think about Snow White and Cinderella, some of these old the classic Disney animated cartoons from the 40s and 50s, and they were starting to transition into a more cost-efficient animation style. So if you go back and you watch some of those Disney movies from the 60s and 70s, they have this very particular look to them. And the reason for that is because to cut costs and save time, Disney started they were no longer inking their drawings anymore. So they basically just got rid of inking and inkers in general, which is doubly sad because back in the day, back in the 40s and 50s, women weren't allowed to be animators at Disney. They could only be inkers. So not only did they relegate women to being inkers, but they also just eliminated that position entirely in the 60s. But so they developed this technique where they would, instead of inking the drawings and then digitally photographing those, and then painting them and then photographing them to animate. Instead, they were doing these Xeroxes of them. They would make a copy of it. So someone would do a pencil drawing, and then they would Xerox it with the contrast turned way up, so it would darken the pencil lines into dark black lines, and in that way, and then they painted those, and in that way they were able to skip the inking process and effectively ink the pencils by just Xeroxing them and darkening the pencil lines into kind of ink lines. And so if you look at those movies from the 60s, like the 101 Dalmatians, or like The Rescuers, or any of those movies from the 60s and 70s, they have this very particular look to them where they look kind of like, cheaper is not the right word, because I actually kind of appreciate the style. I kind of like it. But it definitely has this different look. It doesn't look like classical animation. It looks like it's kind of got this scratchy kind of feel to it. And Don Bluth hated that. He was like old school. He didn't want to cut any corners. He thought that animation was only valid when it was at its purest. And so he staged a coup, and he walked out of Disney, and he took a bunch of animators with him. A bunch of animators quit Disney and went with him, and he started the Don Bluth Company. And the Don Bluth Company was an animation company dedicated to the craft of traditional animation, dating back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s, all those old Disney cartoons, the Warner Brothers cartoons, like really meticulously crafted animation. And that studio made stuff like The Secret of Nim and All Dogs Go to Heaven and An American Tail, the Fievel movie, and a ton of others. But he quickly learned that there's a reason why Disney made all those cost-cutting measures, and his meticulous style of animation basically bankrupted the company. And towards the end of this bankrupting, he was hired to do the animation. His studio was hired to do the animation on this video game called Dragon's Lair. And the concept of the video game was basically like, instead of pixel-based graphics, like every other video game that existed, the video game was going to consist of hand-drawn animation, and it was on this sort of like new revolutionary piece of hardware where the animation would play on these discs inside of the arcade cabinet, and then when you were basically, the way that you played the game was by making choices and pressing certain buttons at certain times, and when you press those buttons it would choose a different animation. So that's, instead of like directly controlling a character like you do in video games, instead it would be like you're standing at this bridge, and it's like you need to jump over this cliff to land on the other side. So you press a button and it like triggers this animation. So in that way, this video game was a playable interactive video game with like movie theater quality animation. So it was like you were playing a movie, essentially.
You gotta let me jump in on this right now, please.
Go ahead.
Let me jump in on this right now, because I actually played this.
I know.
Game.
I know.
You
You're
know where
say.
I'm going with this.
What?
It's making me so mad because you're making it sound better than it is, and that's driving me. Because it was beautiful. The game was beautiful. First of all, it cost 50 cents, not 25 cents. Whoa. So that was a huge deal back in the day. You had to put in 50 cents instead of a quarter. And you got this beautiful cartoon.
It's because it costs twice as much to build the cabinet.
Granted, very, very fair, very fair. But the whole game is a sham because you have no control of it. The only way to win the game and go further is to memorize what you have to do. And the only way you can memorize what they have to do is to keep playing the game. So say it's like, okay, you need to jump over this gorge. Okay, I'm going to push forward. Nope, that's not it. Okay, no, you got to go forward back. Oh, that did it. So you have to memorize joystick moves rather than using any sort of ability. It's all a memory game based on how much you've played the game. And it's enraging to me that they're going to make a thing out of this. I have no idea if this is going to be good or not, but I'm so mad. This game triggers me because you would put money in it.
Dragon Slayer movie is about a guy. It's basically the Tom Cruise Day After Tomorrow, whatever movie, The Edge of Tomorrow movie, where he gets so far and dies, and he starts over again. He has to remember every decision he made until he dies again. He starts over, and the movie keeps starting over. It's really just a nostalgia for that kind of pain you felt, Kirk.
It's such pain, and it wasn't fun. Because you didn't, it's not like, you know how like you play Miss Pac-Man or anything. You're like, okay, I'm going to do some skills. I'm going to do a cool move. This is just memorizing what the cartoon is supposed to give you. Jeez. And then you do that. Plus, most video games at the time gave you 4 lives. You got 3 lives for this. I am not happy. I can't go for that. This is the most angry I've ever been, and I can't go for that. Just based on this game is a con.
Yeah, you triggered.
I was triggered when I slacked this to you, and now I'm even more so. Because you're right, it's a beautiful game. It's beautiful. But I get that they didn't have the capabilities. Like, well, you can't really, with what they want to do with this animation, you can't really control the game.
Yeah.
But still, I wasted so much money on that.
I'm looking at the footage right now of the video game, and I'm not quite sure if it's a cartoon or if it's a video game. I'm a little bit lost because it looks.
It was an arcade game. Like if you walked into an arcade, there would be the video console there. Dragon's Lair.
It looks like a TV show, huh?
100%.
Yeah, I mean it was hand drawn, hand animation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like done by like arguably the best animation studio that existed at the time.
Yeah. Wow. And what they also did, fun fact, it must have been pretty popular because they came out with a second version of it.
Yeah.
I think it was called Space Ace? Or something like that. It was a space version.
I mean,
there was also same game.
There was also a Dragon's Lair 2. There was a sequel.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but I do remember the space one, which was even worse because it went even faster. And you're just like, I'm lost. I'm wasting money here. I'm going to go play Asteroids.
No, there's 3.
Insane.
There's 3 Dragon's Lair games.
Are there really?
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, it's a horrible game.
This looks so real, like an actual cartoon.
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, it
really
was.
does.
It is.
It's exactly what it was.
It's blown me. Like even today's games suck compared to this. If this is what you guys were playing.
No, we weren't playing it because you couldn't play it.
Yeah, it's like hand drawn animation. It's
that's
hand drawn
fair.
animation, and there's different animations. So like, he's walking through a cave and he sees a dragon, and then there's an animation where he swipes his sword at the dragon. There's an animation where he runs away. There's an animation where the dragon spits fire at him and he ducks. And then depending on what button you press, you get one of the options, and you can die, or it's triggering different animations with button presses basically.
Yeah, but you have to memorize those button presses, so there's no skill involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
I mean, it sounds
memorizing
like-
the button.
It sounds like the same concept as Bandersnatch, but just
Well, what
it's a choose your own adventure. You just have to remember how to choose it.
what it is basically like a quick time event. If you ever played a video game that has a quick time event, it's like that. And people pretty much hate quick time events, so it's like a game of all quick time events.
Oh shit! Well, it looks fantastic.
So
All right.
can't you get? We are doing. Can you go for that?
Oh
I,
shit!
Yeah.
So just based on that alone, I don't care if it's Ryan Reynolds who I like. I don't care if it's well done. Just based on the trauma of playing that game as a 12-year-old, I can't go for that.
What's it gonna take for Ryan?
And I want you
Reynolds-
all to support me.
What's that,
What?
I want you all to support me.
fellas? What's it gonna take for Ryan Reynolds to go take a year off? Get out of here, Ryan Reynolds. We don't need you. You're in another video game movie. Go sit down somewhere. I can't go for that. Put Michael B. Jordan in it.
Whoa!
A total Kilby take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% can go for that. From both Andrew's over the top like beautification of the game, like the way that he described it, and the way that you completely want to destroy it, make me need this in my life.
Have you ever
I
noticed
love
that?
it so much.
Have you ever noticed that Tyler is either 0% or 100% in?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
his two speeds.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a man of simple things.
Andrew, I think I can imagine what Andrew's gonna say.
Yeah. So Kirk is right that the actual game function of the game is not good. It's not a fun game.
No.
Although I would argue that it's not less that the game just sucked and more that it was a bold experiment with a format that didn't quite work, but it set a precedent for people to continue experimenting, and now, people do interesting game mechanics like that work better. And I really respect and value the experimentation of it. I have a special place in my heart for Dragon's Lair because number one, I love Don Bluth. I love him I love his movies. I love him as a creative person. I love.
Wife might not be in the room.
He's my uncle.
Yeah, I love his story and what he did. I love the fact that he was like, no, like we're not gonna do this cheap bullshit. I'm walking out of here. I'm starting my own company. He stuck to his convictions and he stuck to the craft of animation so fully and thoroughly that it basically bankrupted him.
And he stuck it to all the kids
But-
who
Yeah.
played the game.
Yeah, Andrew, you also like the style that he stuck it to.
What?
You like the Xerox style of movie.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
even though you
I
just
appre-
like it on principle.
I appreciate it, but I like people who are just like I like people who
0 or 100.
Yeah, exactly. I like people who will stick to their convictions no matter what.
Even if that conviction is
I'm
taking
not-
money from children.
I'm not saying that that's necessarily it's the right thing to do or that you should do it, but it's a fascinating move. It's a fascinating
R. Kelly
way
of video
to live
games.
your life. I love so many Don Bluth movies. I mean, The Secret of Nim is great. An American Tale is great. All Dogs Go to Heaven is great. The Land Before Time was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I even love like the controversial, lesser liked Don Bluth movies. Like I love Rockadoodle, which everybody kind of hated. I even like Troll in Central Park. This was the last movie that Don Bluth ever made, and it was like critically just destroyed. But I love Titan AE. I love it so much.
Oh, did he do that?
Titan AE
Yeah.
is such a good movie.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It looks like the video game.
Yeah, exactly. I love Don Bluth, and I love the experimentation of this game, what it tried to do. I have a special place in my heart for it. So yeah, I can go for that. I'd love to
I
see a
think
Dragon
you
Slayer
are.
movie.
I think if you played it as a kid, you'd probably have a different opinion of it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I understand.
I enjoy it more academically, based on the history of it and just the fact that it was like the first thing to ever try to do something like that.
I can see that.
All right, and this
But
has
fuck that
been
game.
another edition of Can you go for that?
go for
Oh,
that?
oh, oh. Oh, can you go for that? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, can you go for that? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, can you go for that? Can you go for that? Can you go for that?
Nailed it.
Last couple stories before we wrap up the show. This one's weird.
This makes no sense.
So, a couple episodes ago, we talked about the epic ballad of Public Enemy, and the fact that Chuck D, founding member of Public Enemy, was performing at a Bernie Sanders rally, and it feels like a million years ago when you'd even be talking about a thing of like people being out in public in crowds together.
Right? It's weird.
They were going to perform at a Public Enemy or at a Bernie Sanders rally, and they were performing under like a side project of Public Enemy called Public Enemy Radio, which is Chuck D and like some other MCs that aren't the main Public Enemy group. And he has this group as like a side project for doing political things, performing at rallies and things like that. And Flavor Flav sent a cease and desist to Bernie Sanders, saying that they were misrepresenting that Chuck D or that Public Enemy was going to be performing at the show, and that he had not agreed to it. He wasn't going to be there, and he felt like they were misrepresenting that in order to get people to come to the rally. And Chuck D was like, "This is the last straw. You don't do benevolent things. You don't do charitable things. You just want money. We should be doing these things now more than ever. You've been playing around like this for years. You're making a fool of yourself. You're fired." And he fired Flavor Flav from Public Enemy. And there was even like a literal like letterhead that was like, "We have officially fired Flavor Flav from Public Enemy," with all the other Public Enemy members signing it. And it was the end of it. And Chuck D said that this wasn't even the first time. This was just the last straw, and that he had done other things like this in the past, and they had been in a bad place for years, and he was basically already kicked out of Public Enemy, but now they were making it official. So this all happened. So apparently, in an unprecedented turn of events, Chuck D yesterday, which if you're listening to this on a Monday or later, but we're recording this on April 2nd, and yesterday on April 1st, and we all know what April 1st is, Chuck D announced that the entire thing was an April Fool's Day prank. And that none of it was real, they didn't fire Flavor Flav, and that they're on good terms, and that he understands and accepts that Flavor Flav doesn't like to do political rallies, and that that's been an arrangement they've had for years. It's totally fine. There's no issue with the fact that he doesn't perform at them. That's the reason why he started Public Enemy Radio in the first place, to do these things. And he said that he did this because he wanted to get people thinking about the sources of the information that they get. He wanted to get people
Even
to,
you reading it is confusing.
he wanted to get people thinking about, because basically, like, this story came out and it was like reported in all these social media outlets, and he basically wanted to show you, like, don't believe everything you hear from these places.
Even if it's coming from the horse's mouth.
And he said, yeah, I mean, the logic of that is just, like, you can't even unpack it, because it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously social media outlets are going to report misinformation if you feed it to them. If the actual direct person, if it's like, if I'm a famous person and I'm like, hey, BuzzFeed, I chopped my dick off, and then they're like, this just in, noted butter churner influencer Andrew Price chopped his dick off, and then I'm like, actually, I lied.
April Fools.
I have my dick. And then I'm like, don't believe these places. They spew misinformation. It's like, what are you talking about? You were the one that lied about something about you. Like, that's not their fault. That's not...
They're supposed to ask for a picture of your dick in your hand.
Yeah.
There's two things at hand here, all right? The first one, and I'm sad to say it, but my old heads, y'all listen. April Fool's jokes are started and ended on April 1st. All right? That's the first one. They got to start.
Fools, you're talking to April Fool's old heads?
April Fool heads. Listen, the joke starts and it ends on the 1st of April. Don't start the joke in December. It starts April 1st. You got to end April 1st. That's the first thing. The second thing is,
when you said old heads, I thought you were gonna say that, like, Public Enemy is like overrated. I thought you were talking to, like, hip. I thought you were talking about talking to hip hop old heads. But I love that you were.
That's what I thought.
I love that you were talking to, like, traditional April Fools fans.
yes, yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, listen, man, when people catch the viral virus, they do anything to get some clout. That's just some clout chasing 101. Clearly, I'm going to make up a story. Everyone's going to be talking about us. It's going to push our numbers up. He went to the school of Juicy Schmoulier. Okay, we're going to make a story up.
Who? Say that name again?
I feel like the name gets more elaborate every time you say it.
Yeah.
Juicy Schmoulier, all right?
Okay.
He went to the school of making something up so that I can catch some clout and people could be talking about me for a while. If I was Chuck, my man, I would have just never said anything. I would have been like, yo, me and Flav, we good now. That's it. Don't come up with all this fake, they cite your sources and all that stuff. You put it out there, buddy. You caught a case of the viral virus. Luckily, it wasn't the COVID, but no. This is stupid.
Do you think that part of it is because if it's an April Fool's joke, it's poorly done. It's way poorly done. Or is it just a case of he got a lot of shit for people going, why'd you kick Flavor Flav out? And he's like, oh, okay, wait, no. I was April Fool's. I totally didn't mean that.
Well,
I'm trying to play the media.
So on that topic, let this king speak for a second. Here's
Lou?
No, yours truly.
Andrew would never have Lou on the show.
Never again.
Andrew, just start stuttering like the King's Speech.
I think this whole thing is not true. I think that this is just a weird attempt at backpedaling
Yes.
in a way that doesn't embarrass anybody. And I was going to get to this eventually. Really quickly, I wanted to say that in addition to this, Chuck D said that he was inspired to do this by the Orson Welles War of the Worlds thing that happened in the 50s, where they produced a radio show they did a radio production of War of the Worlds, and it was apparently, I mean, it's a little bit of a myth. It's not quite as crazy as people act like it was, but they did this radio play of War of the Worlds, in which the radio play was staged as a real. It was basically like the story told from the perspective of a radio station that was reporting on an alien invasion happening. So it was basically like if you were listening to the radio and then you were listening to something where it was radio announcers just announcing news and talking about music and things like that, and then just out of nowhere they were like, this just in, aliens have invaded, and then the whole thing is just them talking about things happening and the alien invasion happening. And it was this big thing where they did this, and there was all these reports of people taking it seriously and thinking that it was really happening. And there's even like reports that like people had committed suicide because they just thought that aliens were invading and they just couldn't handle it and they killed themselves. That's a myth. Nobody committed suicide. Some people did think it was real, and there were reports of people that thought it was actually happening. But they did, in the beginning of it, they started the whole thing by being like, and now a production of H.G. Wells' War of the World, directed by Orson Welles. Just to let you know, this is presented as like a radio show, but it is fiction or whatever. Like they said that in the beginning. They didn't just play it out of nowhere with no warning. Some people did tune in the middle of the show and think it was real, but nobody killed themselves. But he said that he was inspired by this. But what I was gonna say is I don't think this is true. This is what I think. One of two scenarios. One, either because he fired Flavor Flav, and Flavor Flav and his lawyers responded by basically saying, like, you can't fire us, like, you don't have that ability. And then Chuck D and his lawyers responded by saying, Chuck D is the sole owner of the name Public Enemy. He has full right to hire and fire whoever he wants. And there was really never any follow-up about that. So I think one of two things happened. I think, one, either after they kind of like, after the story died down and then they started doing the real accounting and math on everything, I think that they Chuck and his lawyers might have realized that they actually didn't have the legal right to fire him. And they were like, and his lawyers were like, actually, now that we're looking at this, you actually can't. I think that either that happened, or Chuck D, after he was able to calm down a little bit, and after he had some time to like chill out and rethink what he did, I think that he probably was like, I got caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
I overreacted, and I whether one of those either whether Chuck D like reconsidered and thought that he overreacted and kind of like cooled down a little bit, or if from a legal standpoint they just realized that they actually couldn't fire him. I think one of those two things happened, and I think that Chuck D talked to Flavor Flav and came to an arrangement where he said, okay, so either A, you're right, I actually can't fire you. That's actually, I just can't legally do it. Or B, look, man, I'm sorry, I overreacted, blah, 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 blah. They had this conversation, and they came to an arrangement where he said, so we'll let all this stuff go. We'll just pretend like this never happened. We'll just skip over it. But will you pretend like it was a joke. I have an idea of how we can get out of this without anybody being embarrassed. I'm going to pretend like it was an April Fool's joke and that we were trying to like show everybody some kind of message. And all you have to do is just go along with the story. And I think that is exactly what happened.
Well, you remember earlier when I talked about the Star Wars and how that was the worst story?
Yeah.
This is the worst story. This is the saddest story.
Yeah.
This was the one. This
Well,
is sadder than the Star Wars
Don't speak too soon, Kirk.
one. Okay.
But yeah, that's my opinion. I'm reading this, and
Yeah.
this just does not ring true to me. I don't think that the April Fool's prank makes any sense.
No.
I don't
It
think
doesn't hold any water.
I don't think that his explanation of it makes any sense, and I genuinely think that they discussed behind closed doors, like de-escalating the situation, going back on it for whatever reason, and they came to an agreement that in order to save face with the public, they were going to pretend like it was a joke, which is mutually beneficial to everybody because Flavor Flav gets to stay in Public Enemy. Nobody has to be embarrassed. Nobody has to backpedal publicly or back down. No one person gets to win. Neither party gets to win and the other one loses. They both just get to be like, it was a joke.
We fooled you. Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah. So, final story. Fred Curly Neal, notable member of the most famous and recognizable iteration of the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team, is dead at 77. Tragic day for the basketball community. Beloved Harlem Globetrotters legend Fred Curly Neal has passed away. He was 77 years old. Curly became one of the most recognizable players for the Globies during his 22-year stint with the team, playing in more than 6,000 games. Neal's number 22 jersey was retired in 2008, one of just 5 players to receive the honor. Globetrotters general manager Jeff Munn just released a statement on Curly's passing, saying, "We have lost one of the most genuine human beings the world has ever known. His basketball skill was unrivaled by most, and his warm heart and huge smile brought joy to families worldwide. He always made time for his many fans and inspired millions." And you know, as I think I've talked about a lot on this show, and you guys definitely know, just in general outside of the show, I don't like sports. I don't care about sports. I'm not a sports fan. I have zero interest in basketball or anything. I know who the Harlem Globetrotters are, and I've never been to a game. I have seen video footage of them playing and stuff like that. But what I know the Harlem Globetrotters from, and what I know Curly from, is from the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon, which was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon in the 70s.
I thought you were going to say Scooby-Doo as well.
Well, that too. So the Harlem Globetrotters they had a cartoon, and then they were also on an episode of the Scooby-Doo movies, which is the Scooby-Doo movies was not a movie or movies. It was a show, and in every episode there was a different celebrity guest. So one episode had Adam West and Burt Ward as Batman and Robin, and one episode had the Harlem Globetrotters. So I watched that, obviously, and I watched the Globetrotter show. And Curly was in both. Like, he was a character. They also had the other guy with the huge afro. And in the Globetrotter show, the guy with the afro, his whole thing was like, his afro was like a utility belt. So he could, like, reach into it and pull out anything that he needed. But yeah, Curly was on the show, and he was like the comic relief character. So that's what I know Curly from.
I know him because I actually saw him because I grew up in that era. So Curly he's probably the most famous Globetrotter there was. There's him, Meadowlark Lennon, Goose Gossage. And that heyday of like the mid to late 70s, they were huge. And Curly was the most popular. He was the dribbler of the group. So
Yeah.
he could like slide and dribble at the same time. He could go on one knee. He could do all these fancy things. And he was great. He was a fan favorite. He was the most popular. I saw them a couple of times as a kid. I took my son when he was way young to see them way later. I actually even a guy I played basketball with was on the Washington Generals, the team that they always played, that always lost to. He was on it, and he never really learned that he wasn't supposed to try. Like I'd see him on video, and he'd kind of like try. I'm like, dude, you're supposed to lose. What are you doing? Stop it. He wasn't that.
He just refuses to play by the game, and he's just like, I'm gonna beat them one day. I'm gonna beat them
one day. We're gonna get this victory, guys.
If you're one of the like the like bad guy teams that plays against the Harlem Globetrotters that loses, and you win, do you just automatically get to join the Harlem Globetrotters?
You to overtake them?
Yeah.
It's never happened. They used to be called the Washington Generals, and then over the past like 10, 15 years, they changed the name to the Global Select. Because it became more, I don't know why. I think it's because it became a more universal game.
That sounds like
different players.
That sounds like an off-brand multivitamin you can buy at Walgreens.
Yeah.
Global Select. When you need your vitamins.
That's how you eat vitamins? You drink them out of the bottle?
That's the global Select way.
You should be an actor, Kirk.
I should, but I failed.
I mean, you were in McGruff, so
it's true. I was in Time Lock.
um,
but yeah, he was great. R.I.P.
R.I.P. So that's it. Thanks for listening. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the show. If you have a friend you think would like the show and they haven't heard it yet, you should share it with them. If you want to follow us, get more news about the podcast as well as all the nostalgia content we do on a daily basis, you can go to our Facebook page, the Nostalgia Facebook page. Just search Nostalgia on Facebook, and it's just that one. It's got a check mark next to it and everything. You can join our Facebook group. It's also called the Nostalgia Facebook group. You can follow us on Instagram at Nostalgia. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you might want read during the podcast, you can email us at nostalgicastpod@gmail.com. As always, as we've been saying every episode, stay safe, stay healthy, follow the CDC guidelines, and if you want to email us and let us know about what you're doing to stay sane during the quarantine, nostalgicastpod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.